I'd like to start by crediting my co-authors. Finding brilliant young people to research and write with is probably my biggest secret trick. So Luke Schaefer, co-author of $2 a Day, Sarah Halpern-Meek and Jen Sykes and Laura Tack, co-authors on It's Not Like I'm Poor. It was really fascinating to publish 2 books in the same year on 2 faces, really, of welfare reform. One, the tremendous success of a program that really supports the effort of single mothers and working families who can manage to find full-time, full-year work, albeit at low wages. And the other, really, of the failure of the safety net to catch those who don't manage to find full-time, full-year work when they fall. But I want to start by painting a picture. And in order to paint this picture, I need to take you to East Boston. Many of you know that this has long been sort of the Ellis Island of the Boston area. It's a working class community where you've probably visited when you landed at Logan Airport. It's a very vibrant community, but there on Maverick Street lies a Dickensian building. It takes about a half of a block. It's made out of brick, now encased with a century of grime. It has wire mesh in the windows. Over the door, in dirty brass letters, read the words, Overseers of the Public Welfare. Above that, there's a huge flagpole jutting, sans the flag these days. This is the location that for generations, people who sought aid from the government had to go in order to seek relief. And really the visage of this building speaks to the heritage of a program, the old AFDC program, Aid to Families with Dependent Children, what we called welfare prior to welfare reform, a program that despite its good intentions tended to impose stigma, shame. When Laura Lane and I traveled the country hanging out with welfare recipients and in welfare offices, we often heard the recipients complain that the workers who are I don't mean to say that this is true, but the workers treated the money like it was their own. It was almost as if to claim relief from that system meant that you had to trade away your citizenship card, give up your dignity, in T.H. Marshall's words when he was writing about the poorhouse, to cross the road to the company of the destitute in order to participate in that program. I spent a lot of time, as I said, with Laura Lane, my co-author on my first book, Making Ends Meet, between 1989 and 1995, visiting welfare offices in Chicago, in Boston, in San Antonio, Texas, and in Charleston, South Carolina. So imagine my surprise when in 2008, I started hanging out at another kind of place. Now, about a mile from this Maverick Street location is a little commercial establishment on Bennington Street. Okay, if you would go there today and it had just snowed, you would see bright placards like campaign posters, poked into the snow. They would say things like money in minutes and you've got people. And if you would enter the doors of this establishment, you would be greeted by a phalanx of friendly people waiting to serve you. Can anyone guess what this place is? The H&R Block. Mm-hmm. Now, H&R Block and its competitors are where 70% of EITC claimants go to get their refunds. Yes, they charge a pretty penny for their services, but walking through those doors, we learned as we interviewed and followed hundreds of EITC claimants, is like a badge of citizenship, right? Because you're doing something that every other American does. You're putting in your tax refund because you've worked during the year. You're not a dependent, you are a worker. And the way people talked about the experience of claiming the EITC versus the experience of claiming AFDC was simply stunning to me. People would often say, you've got people, repeating the slogan that H&R Block was using in that year. They would say, February, oh February, as if they were writing an ode to the month of February, which is, of course, when the modal family collects its EITC. They would use phrases like better than Christmas. Walmart has actually picked this up and now has a Better Than Christmas sale around February. They talked about feeling like real Americans. They identified strongly as workers. They even bragged and took pride in being taxpayers. Now, maybe none of us in this room are go around bragging about being taxpayers, but this was a very central part of their identity. Now, we're sociologists. We hang out with economists, and both sociologists and economists have said that it's really important to capture what different kinds of monies mean. And so in keeping with that, we asked people about what their tax credit meant to them. We found that people really saw it as a just reward for work, something they had earned. They believed that the more you work, the more you get from the program, so they saw it as work motivating, but also a just reward for their effort. Second, they saw it as the kids' money. They didn't understand the rules very well. It's certainly not enough to game the system. But they believed that the money was sort of a sacred trust because they knew it was associated with having children. And finally, they saw it as savings, special money that should be put aside for long-term financial goals, not the day-to-day bills that consumed their money, their budgets in the rest of the year. So along with my collaborators, we followed several hundred EITC filers from the moment that they applied through 6 months' time to look at how they spent the money. And what we saw was really striking. First, spending was very much in accordance with that meaning. 10% was reserved for the kids. One mother talked about how she actually let the kids go to Target and pick out one outfit that they really wanted rather than the sale outfit she would have gotten, and how this just brought such pleasure to her child. Another mother talked about an especially good child who had had a very hard year, and how she bought her a little Dora the Explorer table and chair so she can sit and have her after-school snack at that table. But 40% was reserved for mobility purposes. 17% directly into savings, and the rest to things like used cars or deep freezers, washers and dryers, time-saving assets. 25% went toward cleaning up debt, often precisely because families wanted to clean up their credit so they could look ahead and save, hopefully, for a home. 2% to tax pressure, and much of the rest went to paying ahead on bills, kind of building some surplus into the future. But even more important than how they spent the money, because you might expect that they would squander the money, such a big lump sum, was how it made them feel like real Americans. Now, two of my favorite political scientists are Joe Soss and Andrea Campbell, and I commend their work to you on both on Social Security and AFDC. But if their results are correct, and we have yet to test this, there may be all kinds of positive externalities to a program that makes people feel more included, more part of the American fabric. Again, the Soss and Campbell results suggest that we should see more voting and higher rates of civic engagement. And if these positive externalities are real, this could help heal our communities and even strengthen our nation. Now, the EITC is not quite perfect. There is a small flaw, and that is when we cataloged the budgets of folks over the entire year, what we saw is that in the typical month, the average family was still living in the red, and that's part of why 25% of EITC expenditures went toward debt. Now, we also know that families hated the idea of an advanced EITC. They really liked the lump sum. Many actually intentionally overwithhold to jack up that lump sum. So we need to figure out a way to preserve the good of the lump sum, but also build the power of the credit to smooth income in the face of a rainy day. And we're going to be talking about that today. Last year at about this time, I had the pleasure to meet Ezra Levin from CFED, and he and myself, Sarah Halpern-Meakin, Sarah Sternberg-Green, have come together to really advance a policy proposal we call the Rainy Day EITC. And again, I'd like to repeat the result in closing from the Center for Social Development. When asked EITC filers whether they would take advantage of a program that would allow them to save a portion of their refund with a modest match, 82% indicated they would like to take advantage of such a program. We have a lot of work to do, but this is an exciting result, and I look forward to our discussion.